Hey everyone, it's Carter King. If you're an educator, a leader, or just a parent who wants to teach kids about space, check out my newest book, Carter's Journey Through Space. It's available now on Amazon, Target, and bookstores everywhere. Come explore the universe with me.
Welcome to another episode of the Contagious Culture Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle King, and the goal of this podcast is simple: to help you create environments where people thrive. Through real conversations, practical strategies, and powerful stories, we equip leaders, educators, and change makers just like yourself to build cultures rooted in purpose, performance, and authenticity. Because culture isn't something you talk about, it's something you live. This is the Contagious Culture Podcast. Let's get started. Welcome back to another episode of the Contagious Culture Podcast. I am your host, Kyle King, and the goal of this podcast is simple: to help you create ecosystems and environments where people thrive. Look, I have somebody on here today. Man, when I first met this guy, I knew that he was the person that is just doing absolutely amazing things, and just not based upon what he's doing, based upon who he is. He is running an organization right here in Charlotte, North Carolina. And when I would say leading with heart, social innovation, and being able to be somebody that is the epitome of leadership in the city of Charlotte, this is your guy. RJ, how you doing, my friend?
Man, that was an incredibly kind introduction. Incredibly kind, but I'm doing well. I'm doing really well.
It's so good to see you. I'm always filled with knowledge every time I get the chance to talk to you. So I'm super excited for this conversation. But for many of the listeners who haven't met you before, that haven't experienced what you all have been able to accomplish for the city of Charlotte, how would you introduce yourself without using any titles? And what would you say your mission is for the city of Charlotte?
Man, that's a great question, especially without titles. I love that. Titles can get in the way of so much, right? We love our titles. And at my heart, I'm a people person. I love connecting people to purpose, and I love connecting people to organizations that are doing great work. And I feel like I've done that in every role and title I've had in 25 years. And something you said, even to set up this show, creating environments. I'm passionate about creating environments for organizations, but also informally creating environments like you do right here for this podcast. Those are all ways to engage people, is creating the right environment. So I would say, that's something I'm passionate about, is connecting people to purpose.
I love that. You know, I say this all the time, but people in the social impact space, there's a lot of passion, there's a lot of purpose, but there's a weight that we often carry that we don't get the opportunity to be able to share. But many of us understand and we empathize with that weight. So instead of just talking about the weights that you're carrying, what's keeping you excited and energized these days?
Oh, wow. Honestly, because of the work I'm doing now with Mission Charlotte, I get to interact with leaders throughout the city of Charlotte, and actually across the country now too, but definitely in Charlotte, who are passionate, who are really just figuring out how to get work done in the social impact space. We know all the constraints, like you said, we all know the negatives. Those don't need to be repeated, but the people I'm meeting with now are not letting that get in the way of their mission, whether it's serving people or a specific population or tackling a specific problem in our city. They're just going after it, and they don't even really look at these obstacles anymore the way I did. I think meeting with a younger generation has given me so much hope. I am a little bit older now than I used to be, and I'm starting to meet with people who are half my age, literally, but are going after it. I'm learning so much from them. I'm learning so much from the 20s and early 30s who are doing things differently than I did. And I'm just learning a lot.
You know, I really appreciate you referencing the cross-generational mentorship, but opportunities that we get to bridge those generations together. What are you seeing though, RJ? You know, you recognize that you sit in a different generation. A lot of the younger generation is passionate, is innovative. There's a lot of like there's a lot of innovation, right? So
yeah,
it's funny because I have these things written down. Words. So what are you seeing though? Like when you think about this older generation, but then, or more, I don't like to call them older generation, but the seasoned generation, whereas we have a newer generation that is passionate, but they don't have the background, they don't have the experience. What are you seeing that could best bridge that gap between both generations?
So I probably have a couple thoughts. My first is on the first half of that question. I'm really seeing that the younger generations worrying less about what structure and just going. And so a lot of them a lot of these are for-profit social impact ventures. Some are nonprofit. It seems to be less about trying to put what they're doing in a box. It's trying to use whatever structure best fits them. Which I really love seeing. So I love a lot of businesses that are being started to tackle problems, as well as nonprofits, realizing those are just structures. So let's name the problem they're trying to solve and then figure out the best way to go about doing it. So I love some of this innovation that's bridging this gap. Some for-profits are having nonprofit subsidiaries. I see some nonprofits doing a lot in earned revenue, which really gets me excited from a sustainability perspective. So I see a lot of gray area, which actually I'm drawn to, less rigid guidelines than maybe in the past or my generation that would have to fit in a box.
I love this. This is getting me so excited. And for all of my listeners that like to joke on me, ingenuity is the word that I was looking for. I see this bridge between innovation, between earned revenue, between what boards need. There's a lot of challenges that we're seeing within the nonprofit space. And one of the things that I always push back and say is that nonprofit is just a tax code. It's just a tax status. We have to be able to build a business. So what are some of the challenges that you're seeing that even your leadership in Mission Charlotte are really helping organizations reveal, but then also providing them the necessary supports that they need to be able to drive their organizations forward?
Sure. Probably a couple thoughts there. One, for the work at Mission Charlotte, I mean, that's why we exist. We've seen decades and decades of just great leaders getting burned out, primarily in the nonprofit sector. And a lot of that was passion driven. And a while you have compassion fatigue or funding changes, all the normal things. And a lot of our nonprofit leaders don't have an MBA potentially, or have never run an organization. They just know how to tackle that specific problem and they do it really well. But to be sustainable and be able to attract talent and develop programs and to scale, you got to figure out how to run an organization. And so that's the gap Mission Charlotte steps into, is how do you get staff leadership and staff development running? Do you have a strategic plan? Do you have goals and metrics behind that? Are you measuring the impact you say you're having? So we're an organizational development nonprofit that serves other nonprofits.
I love that.
So we help them build the infrastructure. We don't do it for them. We help build it with them or give them the tools to build it so they can actually have an organization. So I think that's the first part of the equation, right? How do you run an organization, whether it's for-profit, nonprofit, doesn't matter, government? How are you actually putting systems in place to help run it? But then there's the other side of just the reality. We know the challenges within the nonprofit sector on fundraising. I've written about it last couple of days on LinkedIn, right? The landscape has changed. We do need to think differently about how do we tackle our problems in our city. We got to bridge the gap with government and nonprofit, churches and businesses. So how does that look? And I think that's messy. That's the messy middle we're in right now. And honestly, I love the messy middle myself.
You know, it's interesting that you say the messy middle, because I think that especially in this space, we operate in the gray. We take a little bit from this side, a little bit from that side, and then we operate right in that gray area. It's not black or white all the time. There's no cookie cutter way of doing what we do at scale. But one word that you mentioned, sustainability, is super important, and really being able to have the processes, the systems, and the personnel to be able to really grow your organization forward. And not just for today when it's potentially trending, but 3 to 5 to 10 to 15 years later, being able to still be alive, but then also providing impact and value within your communities. For an organization that is outside of Charlotte, though, that maybe can't come to your workshop, maybe can't come to a luncheon, or doesn't have the opportunity to interface with you all, where does that organization begin? They're doing good work. They have a good grip on the problem. They have potential even programs that they're wanting to be able to build out. But where do they begin in this organizational development process?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think that's the power of relationships. So I think they need to be able to call Kyle King, call RJ Caswell, and regardless of where they are, to discover those. I know there's probably some organizations out doing this across the country, but I believe in their local context, find like-minded people, start meeting. If there's not an organization that exists, at least start bringing people together. I think you mentioned the beginning of this podcast. Who else is doing the work in your city?
Yeah,
and start meeting with them regularly.
Yeah.
It only takes a few of them, and I guarantee you they'll find other CEOs going, "Hey, I heard you're getting together. Can we get coffee? Can we get coffee?" So start figuring out who else is in your context doing the work and give them a call. I just believe so much can happen by picking up the phone, sending a message and saying, "Can we get some time?" Because there's power in numbers when you do that. Being alone is the biggest barrier to organizational health.
You know, one of the pushbacks that I always get in the nonprofit space specifically is that it's lacking collaboration. And we always approach these conversations, these coffee chats, these meetings, these workshops as competition, rather than really being able to sit with someone over coffee and identify how we can collaborate together so that we can be able to impact our communities and share resources, share best practices, share thought leadership. Can you talk about that intersection between competition, where you may be sitting down with someone that is competing in funding, but really the importance of collaboration amongst these organizations and how that can be the bridge that could really help us build communities?
Sure. In fact, I think and write a lot about partnership and collaboration and the importance of both, but they're very distinct. I think collaboration is definitely the hardest, but also the potentially most powerful for a city, right? When you look at what's going on, collaboration really means you have to set aside ego and logo and put the mission above. That is really, really hard for a lot of leaders to do. Because they're getting pressure from their boards. Maybe they're just not wired for that. So they come into collaboration, but they're not really collaborators. They want to be in the room, but it's really a challenge. But if you can find the right people who really believe, hey, let's solve homelessness. Well, you know, one organization in the city cannot solve homelessness by themselves. In Charlotte, how many organizations are tackling homelessness? So many. And we still have homeless people, right? Or we still have challenges in the sector. So there's enough space there for our brothers and sisters who are tackling homelessness in the city of Charlotte to come together. There's so many, and they're great organizations that if they collaborate, they can find out where each other are doing work, not duplicate, actually potentially even raise more money to solve a problem. But it is really hard to find the right people.
It really is, to find the right people, the right timing, the right partner, identifying what this looks like in practice and what partnerships look like. It is difficult. And one thing that I just revealed that you communicated is identify in your space where you best fit in the journey to be able to solve that major problem. I may exist in this space to solve this specific pocket. I may be supporting these individual people, but in this specific way, and all of us collectively can be able to solve the problem together if we all do it and show up in our own ways. You know, RJ, you mentioned earlier, you didn't date yourself, but kind of, that you've been in this work for 25 years. You know, I'd love to really go back and talk about like what got you into this work. What was that 25-year sequence or journey that really kept that fire and burning, desire alive to transform people?
Sure. I wish I had an easy answer. I do know that leadership isn't linear. My journey has not been linear at all. A lot of turns. but it's always been relationship centered. And I think as I reflect on that 25 years, even times where I've gone, gosh, I wish I didn't care about things and I could just go work a quote job. It's just not who I am. And even when I've tried to get out of that, whether it's for a season or compassion fatigue or burnout, I'll just go work this job and won't care about it. Won't that be wonderful? It's just not who I am. Every time I've done that, I realize really quickly that I'm a purpose-driven person. I want change. I want to see change individually and collectively. And so that's really what's kept me. I've been in a lot of different sectors over 25 years. But the one thing that's staying constant is that purpose and that element of solving problems for what's going on. That's been in education sector, in a mental health sector, spiritual formation sector, and now what I do with Mission Charlotte and some other ventures I have on the side as well. Man, it's people. Every time I've tried to push out from that and go, gosh, I wish I could just work a job and make money, that it didn't matter. That at the end of the day, it's just not me, and that's not a great answer. I've just realized I'm probably more comfortable with myself now, and go, yeah, I'm here to be able to help connect people into purpose, and my own purpose is connected to that, right? That I want change to happen, and that only happens through relationships.
I really appreciate you mentioning that unapologetic desire to show up and connect people to purpose, because I recognize that we show up as leaders with so much weight, and then we have these masks that we wear, and we don't really authentically show up as ourselves. So I appreciate you showing up exactly as who you are. But for that young leader that is still trying to find their way, find their path, and doesn't have that courage or boldness to be able to show up in the ways that you're showing up in so many spaces, what would be your advice to them to be able to do that?
Wow. I would say, the one thing I wish I had, my wife and I talk about this when we were both, before we were married, and definitely even when we were married and early on, that we really did have some trusted people that would speak into who we were. We didn't. And so we both try to do that now. But if you are that person, try to find a few trusted people a little further ahead than you, to build a relationship with. It doesn't have to be in the same sector. It doesn't have to be your likely candidate, but find some trusted people a little bit further down the road that are willing to engage with you on a consistent basis. And just ask questions. It doesn't have to be super formal. It doesn't have to be a quote, coaching or counseling or mentoring, but somebody who's willing to invest if you ask them to.
I love that. And the power of mentorship is so important. RJ, who's mentored you? Who's been your coach, your bridge, your affirmer and the bridge builder for you to be able to have at least access or perspective to the things that you've had access to?
Man, there's been so many older than me, so many my age. And then honestly, we talked about the younger generation. I'm learning and being mentored by the younger generation right now, which has been fascinating. But I remember when I went on staff at a church in 2009, out of the blue. Didn't go to seminary, but we were at this church and we loved it. And they asked me to come on staff, and the executive pastor really helped me understand me better.
That's good.
And two examples with that are, I remember I went on staff, never worked at church, and this role was new. And so I kept asking my boss, who's executive pastor, questions and questions and questions. And what do I do here? And what do I do here? And how do I structure this? And he finally looked at me one day and called a timeout in the meeting. He literally went timeout. He goes, I don't know the answer to any of those questions. That's why we hired you. Wow. Go do your job. Just go do it. And he allowed me to fail and get up. He allowed me to try things. He would always give me feedback. But he was clearly, hey, I hired you to be a leader. Go do it. So he gave me permission. And I guess that was the big thing, permission to be me. And then the second time I was meeting with him and I was honestly whining, right? I was in a one-on-one meeting with him, my normal weekly, literally whining. Oh, I have all this to do. I'm overworked. Of course, that was work I put on myself. And I just described the situation and why I was overwhelmed. And he again called a timeout and he said, RJ, you know you love this, right? I said, well, what do you mean? He goes, you love spinning plates. I watch it. That's just who you are. Now, we need to help you with some organization and how to manage it, but you know you love this. And he was just smiling ear to ear, and it made me pause and go, you're right. I love being able to be involved in all these other areas. It was just my management of it, and how to structure my weeks and time management. But the actual things I was saying were problems. They weren't problems at all. I loved it. So he, again, allowed me to see myself much better.
RJ, what is that person's name? Because I just believe in sharing generosity, and because that person has legacy.
Oh, for sure. It was for sure. Mark Hoffman. Yeah, he now lives in Knoxville, Tennessee, and we still connect, not as much as I'd like, but here and there. But for many years, he's the one who helped me see myself.
And why do you think? Because I've been having this conversation a lot about in this personal development, just development process. There's an unbecoming and an unmasking and a revealing that we have to go through to really be able to recognize who we are and where are our gaps and where are our strengths so that we can be the best leader, the best father, the best husband. And I believe it shows up everywhere. Once you become a better person, it really shows up in all areas of your life. But why is that so important? Because you didn't talk about metrics. You didn't talk about productivity strategies. You didn't talk about all that. You said this person gave me permission to be me and allowed me to be me, and then continue to enhance my ability as a person before my title or all of these other things. Why is that so important?
Oh gosh, clarity, right? Personal clarity on, for me in my faith, how God wired me. And I was confused for honestly most of my professional career until Mark helped me see better who I was. Now, some of that was during that period, we did a lot of assessments, strength finders, and Enneagram. And now I have an entire document with every assessment I've ever done. And it's all in one document. And it really tells a story, right? Those are just pieces. I'm quick to say assessments are helpful tools, but don't let them put you in a box. But for me, in 2009, when we did strength finders as a staff, it was the first time I went, oh my gosh, that's why these other jobs were so difficult and were so draining. And that's why over here, these are the things that bring me life. I'm really good. And at the same time, why day-to-day management has always been a struggle for me. Why I've always struggled with paperwork and detail. I can't say I just can't do it, right? Parts of my job still required it. But it gave me an awareness of why those were harder for me than other things to do.
What has been your slingshot moment? And I describe a slingshot moment as the moment that really pulled you back. It pulled the curtain back on RJ, and it potentially even humbled you or just taught you the most about who you are today, and you pulled you back to be able to get you to the leader, to the father, to the husband that you are today.
I mean, it was probably one during that season would be one of them. I've probably had multiple hearing that slingshot moments. That's one of them for sure. And I think probably in the last couple of years, being reinvigorated to be more of who I am. I think for a long season, I did a job because is what I was asked to do. And it didn't really bring me joy or life, and I could do it, but it really took everything out of me. And now trying to figure out how I continue to do the things I'm really good at, realizing there's still going to be pieces that you have to do for all kinds of jobs or professional roles. But where can I lean in more of who I am? And so that's probably been the last couple of years, just leaning back into. I think that's why Mission Charlotte's been a gift during this season, to take a culmination of different work environments and personal environments and be able to pour into leaders.
Now, for Mission Charlotte has come up a few times in this conversation, but for somebody that's not based in Charlotte, that isn't familiar with the work that you all do at Mission Charlotte, can you talk about the organization, the mission, and the work that you're doing for the city of Charlotte?
Sure. So Mission Charlotte, we are a faith-based organization. So we believe our purpose is healthy Christian-led nonprofits transform communities. And then our mission is we glorify God by helping nonprofits thrive. That's who we are. That's who we are as an organization. How that looks is we teach quarterly workshops on organizational health. Those are open to anybody. It doesn't matter what your organization's like, whether it's a faith-based one or not. We would love for you to come to our workshops. So we teach on 6 core competencies of organizational health. We've touched a lot of them already right here, but strategic planning and board governance and organizational measurement and fundraising and marketing and communication. So every quarter, I'll teach a no-cost workshop. Anybody can come. It's free. You just register. We'd love for you to come. And what I tell everybody at those workshops is we're going to give you some really good teaching and content. I believe that. But just as powerful, you're going to be in a room with 30, 40, 50, 60 other leaders that you need to meet, that you need to build a relationship with, that you need to build community with. And then I do coaching after those workshops. So I provide one-on-one coaching, no cost, to nonprofit leaders who want to get better in their organizations. Typically, that's connected to organizational health. But sometimes it's, man, I'm about to leave my job. Help me out, right? Yeah. It really depends on that situation. And then we offer now fee-based consulting as well. So if there's a nonprofit here and realize they really need help with their board, we can provide board retreats, board governance help, board workshops, strategic planning processes, all right here. And we're all focused on Charlotte. So as the name says, Mission Charlotte, we really want to see our city flourish. And our role is helping those organizations be better at what they do.
You mentioned one phrase, organizational health. I'd like to know, for listeners listening in, how do I know that my organization is healthy versus unhealthy? Like, what are some of the things that, and I know it's probably a lot. Yeah. What are some of the things?
It is. So, I mean, it's a great question. I think we all wrestle through that. The way we're using it now, we have an assessment tool called the Thrive Index. Okay. Our friends in Raleigh, Mission Triangle, created this tool. It's just a tool, right? It's 60 questions. Anybody can take it. But if your organization, and there's a lot of assessments that are good ones out there, but it's 60 questions, 10 questions on each of those 6 areas. And it'll give you a snapshot in time, how we're doing. It'll really provide feedback to go, we're doing these areas really well. These areas we haven't touched, and we know that. And then here's areas we have no clue what's going on. And the purpose, right, is to build a plan. To go, okay, knowing, and I hate to say the old G.I. Joe thing, knowing is half the battle. We know now, instead of just either working so hard that you avoid it or you intentionally avoid it, without having a clear view of where your organization is. And typically that comes out, again, in how's your board doing? Does your board even know their role? Does your board chair know what a board chair does? What's the board do versus what's the executive director do? Are there clear swim lanes for everybody? Yeah. Is there a strategic plan? Are you actually following it if you have one? And then really organizational measurement, right? We say we're having this impact, but we're just giving you a bunch of, we're just giving you a lot of outputs. We're not giving you any outcomes. So how do we tackle that? There's other things too, of course, but those are really the areas we see most organizations really need help with.
How are you defining the word impact? Because I believe that, especially in this space, impact is a loose term that we just throw out there, that we're making an impact. In corporate spaces, impact is very, it's driven by dollars, it's driven by metrics, expansion, growth, scalability. Like it's very defined. But how do you define impact for our listeners listening that probably as loosely use it as I do sometimes?
Sure. I don't know if I have a great definition off the cuff, but I would say when we teach impact, it really is about the change you want to see. Is it happening? Is that change happening?
That's good.
And I think the biggest disconnect is most nonprofits say impact, but they're really just looking at outputs. How many people came? If you put it in the context for Mission Charlotte, when I teach this, how many people come to a workshop is really cool. It can really fill my cup. Oh man, we had 50 leaders come, but I don't know if it had an impact at all. They could have come because we had good snacks, because Feeding Charlotte's a great partner, and Rich Armenia provides snacks for everybody. And there was Twinkies at the last workshop. So I don't know if impact is happening at all. I just know we had good outputs. Outputs are important, but that's not outcome. So impact's got to be tied to outcome. Are you measuring the change you say you want to see? Are you tackling the problem? And that is just a much deeper level. And I would say it's also an opportunity that if you start measuring it, you can actually go to funders and demonstrate change is actually happening, not just more people came to a workshop.
Tell me more. What would that look like?
Well, for us, in our context, right? So we would say we have a theory of change, and we teach a theory of change. We don't have time to go through that. We have a really great template I can share with anybody to go, how do you believe change is happening in your organization? So you really start with, what do you want to see? What problem are you trying to solve? And you work backwards from that. So for us, if we say we want nonprofits to thrive, well, we got to define thriving. Okay, for us, that's organizational measurement on the Thrive Index, that health. And then how do we know they're getting better? Because they're connected to Mission Charlotte. So that's the hard work we have to figure out. It's not just how many come to workshops. It's not how much coaching I do, even though I'd love to say that's a part of it. But unless I can connect my coaching for them making a step towards a better board or a step towards implementing their strategic plan.
Hey, it's Kyle. Sorry to interrupt your programming, but I got a quick culture check for you. How's your team's energy right now? I mean, literally, right now. Are people feeling inspired? Or are they just showing up? See, here's the truth. Culture doesn't change because we talk about it. It changes because we live it actively every single day. And that's what I help organizations do. Build contagious cultures that people actually want to be a part of. Through keynote talks, interactive trainings, and hands-on consulting, I help leaders transform the way their teams connect, perform, and grow. So if your culture needs a little bit of spark, let's light it up together. Visit theculturelab.org, again, theculturelab.org, or connect with me directly on LinkedIn at Kyle S. King to learn more about how we can work together. Because remember, your culture is contagious. Make it worth catching. Now let's get back to the program.
Then we're not actually completing what we say we're going to complete, which is thriving nonprofits. So every nonprofit should be able to start with impact and go, what are we trying to solve? What change do we want to see? Okay, so now how do we structure our programs, our staff, our budgets?
Do you believe that all impact and change is tangible? Or what if we're working with nonprofit organizations where it's not as black and white, the change or the transformation? Or do you believe
No, I think a lot of change is tough to measure. I worked at a church for 12 years, right? Okay. The change we wanted to see is, spiritual formation or deeper faith, which how do you measure deeper faith?
How do you measure it?
Right. But I do think there are ways to do it. And some of that is going to be storytelling and interviews and those. And I do think those are valid, but also think you can do surveys. If you've come to our church in the last year and you joined a small group, right? Ask a series of questions every single year. How is a small group changing? Are you reading your Bible more? Are you serving the community more? Are you engaging with one of our partners, right? There's all kinds of ways to structure that, but most of us aren't doing that. And surveys aren't perfect either, but it does give you an indication on some of those very hard to measure metrics that change is happening, or we see indicators of change. Because how do you measure somebody's closer to God or not, right? That's incredibly difficult.
That's a tough one.
And that's just one context, right? I think every nonprofit struggles with some of those things.
That'd definitely be a part 2 of the conversation. I love how you mentioned that. I've never heard it in that way before, that a lot of organizations aren't necessarily managing impact, they're managing output. And I've even been guilty of that, where it's like, all right, we've been growing our attendees of workshops for the last few months, but are we growing the actual attendees that show up over the last few months? And how are we growing or changing or transforming those people that are showing up at the workshop? Like, I love that. Like, I'd love to coach and give workshops and put people in the room, but I'm just like, how am I really transforming the people once they come into the room?
Right.
What is something that a nonprofit leader is listening in right now, a question, a thought, assessment that they can do potentially today or this week that would help them answer these questions to be able to better assess and measure and be able to develop programming around the impact that they're working to drive as the organization grows?
Right. I mean, I think some of it is, we have systems, right, that we've talked about. You can jump on Mission Charlotte's website and fill something out for free. But I think the bigger question is revisiting your mission and vision. I think it's as simple as, okay, if we say this is our vision for our community, this is our mission, what are we doing to accomplish that? It's really hard, because if you've been an organization that's 20 years old, you've been doing it the same way for 20 years.
Tough. Yeah.
You need a space where you can look at your mission and then work backwards and just start asking questions. Pull in a friend who's never volunteered with your organization, who's never given a dime to your organization, and give them your mission statement and say, what do you think? Help me walk through what our mission is. Because I do think we all get really trapped in our bias and blind spots really quickly.
I think this is so powerful and so useful, RJ, and I appreciate you so much. For a nonprofit leader listening in right now, what's your advice? What's your advice, your 60-second advice, 90-second advice that could be able to take them from where they are to where you desire them to go?
Man, it's going to sound so simple and maybe even a little bit trite, but don't walk alone. It's so difficult, whether you're in business or nonprofit or a stay-at-home dad or a stay-at-home mom, and so this has nothing to do with nonprofit. I think it's just life. Journeying alone is really difficult. So build a trusted advisor network for yourself, some trusted advisors who don't have any skin in the game other than being in relationship and giving really trusted feedback. That way it can carry with you, because we know the nonprofit sector turnover is really high. So the chance that you're going to be at the same nonprofit in 6 to 12 months, you need to carry those advisors with you outside of the organization.
What's the vision, RJ? What's the vision for Mission Charlotte 3 to 5 years from now? I love hearing where these organizations will be.
Man, I think, right, it's on us. We're only 3 years old. So it's really, the vision is we can actually share how nonprofits are having better impact because of the work Mission Charlotte does, that we actually can show the outcome and the impact. And because of that, right, not in and of itself, because of that, our city's better. Our city's flourishing because of it.
I love that. RJ, this has been a phenomenal conversation. I appreciate you so much. I'm excited for the workshops. I'm excited for part 2 and 3 of this conversation that we can continue to build on. And where can people find you? Where can people find more information also about Mission Charlotte?
Yeah, Mission Charlotte is just missioncharlotte.org. Love for anybody to go check that out. Me, Kyle, you already know. Hit me up on LinkedIn. That's where I am. Send me a connection request. If you're in Charlotte, let's get coffee. If not, let's jump on I'd probably say Zoom or Teams, or not Teams, but Google Meet now, anywhere. Phone call. Love hearing people's stories. So find me there. I write a lot. I follow some great people like Kyle King. So get out there and build relationships.
I love it. RJ, I appreciate you so much for giving your heart, your wisdom, and just your thought leadership, not gatekeeping, really being able to pour into the community. If you're still listening in, one of the questions that we always ask our listeners is, what type of culture are you spreading? RJ is spreading a culture of relationship building. He's spreading a culture of people to purpose and building bridges so that our community of Charlotte can be able to thrive. Look, the energy you bring is the culture you create. Go make yours worth catching. My name is Kyle King. I'm the host of the Contagious Culture Podcast, and we will see you all next episode. Thanks for tuning in to the Contagious Culture Podcast. If this episode challenged or inspired you, hey, take a second to share it with someone who's building culture in their world. Make sure to like, subscribe, and leave a review. It helps more leaders, educators, and change makers just like yourself join the movement. You can connect with me on LinkedIn or YouTube at Kyle S. King for more tips, tools, and methodologies to be able to help you create this ecosystem of absolute excellence. Until next time, lead boldly, live intentionally, and remember, your culture is contagious. Make it worth catching.